Evening, everyone. Welcome to the June 24th Planning Commission meeting. We'll get started with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next order of business is the approval of minutes from the May 20 meeting. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I will motion to approve the minutes as written.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Everybody ready?
Yeah.
All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Okay, motion is approved. Next is the citizens' comments for items not on the agenda. So anything not discussed on the agenda. Does anybody have anything to say? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Next is the comments from our Carroll and Frederick County planners, but our Carroll County planner, Hannah Weber, is not here. She did send in her comments. Oh, you did? Oh, well, sorry. I didn't hear you say. I'm so sorry.
Sir, you can sit down if you need to, or you can stand up, either way.
I said I'd stand. Well, hopefully this will just take a minute.
Yeah.
I'm Ron Runkles, and I doubt if most of you know it, but I have a registered tree farm with the state of Maryland in the middle of Mount Airy.
Okay.
And I'm planning, some years ago, I won't tell you how long ago, my father and I planted Christmas trees, about a little over 2 acres. And now what's left have grown old, starting to fall over. And I want to go ahead and reforest that with native hardwoods, oak, hickory, perhaps maple. It's already been approved, clear up to the state of Maryland, and even funded. My question is, I searched the town charter and regulations, see if any kind of permit was needed. I didn't find it. The only thing I found was that it's be done within the guidance of the county foresters. Okay, they're on it. They kicked it up to the state for me.
Ron, where's the approximate location of this acreage?
Okay, it's right behind Hill Street. It's behind Hill Street, and it's next to your new rail trail. In fact, this stand is up on the hill, well above the rail trail. Probably won't even know it. But that's the area. We have about 13.5 acres of tree farm, mostly walnut. Now, why are we doing it? For one thing, the state's willing to pay for over half of it. The second thing is that, okay, it's a carbon capture project and a water conservation project. Because that gully that we own a major part of drains about 25 acres of Mount Airy. The water passes out under the old, I call it the railroad track. It passes out, it disappears into the ground. And I have a hunch that it helps supply our town partially with water. So this is basically what's behind the project. I bring it up Planning Commission because I don't want any surprises moving forward. I've already got things lined up, papers ready to sign, but as I say, I didn't want any surprises.
Surprise. Here's a card. You can call me and we can talk about it after.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else have any comments for items not on the agenda? I'm pausing. Thank you, Mr. Uncles. Have a good night. Okay, can we move on? All right. Justin, you want to come forward? And then John, do you want me to read Hannah's comments?
It's up to you, either way. If you want to, that'd be great. If not, I can read it,
Okay. All right.
or I'll force Deborah to read it.
Huh?
Nothing.
Okay. All right, let's hear from Justin first since he's here, and then we can read Hannah's. All right, sir, how are you?
Good. The first thing I have is that I did submit the counties, or the comments for the master plan from the, both from the county, then I also provided some additional resources that I've came across through my years in planning that might be useful, but they might not be, they're not from the county, but they're from me. That's just what I wanted to add to that. And then just things that have happened in the county in the last month. There was a bill 2407. It was an amendment to the zoning ordinance to update the definition of bodywork. This bill originated on lessons learned from the Frederick County Intercept, Interagency Child Exploitation and Persons Trafficking Task Force. And the Planning Commission gave it a favorable recommendation on June 12th. The Ligonor Town Center, there was a reapproval of the preliminary plan on June 12th for the remaining 86 townhomes and HOA lot, open space parcel for existing PUD subdivision, and that's located on the north side of Old Pike. The Ligonor Town Center, North Commercial Lot N5, the site was approved June 12th. It was a 13,125 square foot building, and that's located on the west side of Eagle Drive. There are two county bills coming up this Wednesday, council bills. One is regarding the number of chickens on residential properties, and there's one for commercial solar facility design criteria. And then the last thing I have is the water resources element. There will be decision to send it to the state for 60-day review at the Planning Commission meeting on Wednesday.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Justin while he's here?
Justin, quick question. I think sometime within the last 10, 15 years, Frederick was considered one of the fastest growing communities in the state.
Yep.
Are you still, is the town still on that pace?
I think the whole county is still anticipated growing the fastest. I did mention a comment, I think, in the Frederick County side comments about the numbers in one of the I think it's chapter 2 with the growth was off. I think we had 100 or 2. It's like 271,000 people in the county at the time of the 2020 census. I think it's supposed to be like 350 by either the 2035 mark, and then I think it's even higher for the 2050 mark, closer to like 400,000 or something like that. But those are just the numbers off the top of my head.
Is this growth rate driven by additional in-migration from outside the county and outside the town, as well as, I don't know, people having more children?
It's a lot of growth generated from just being close to DC and just the increase of prices in Montgomery County and just Howard County, and it just a lot of pressure, and our zoning hasn't really it doesn't really allow for growth. It would just have been mostly single family houses, and there's just been a recent push for multifamily and townhouses have been the two big things, but there's definitely, the city of Frederick is going to, take most of that between the South Frederick corridors on the county side, the East Street form-based code and that side, and then also the Golden Mile on the west side of the city. So a lot of the growth is anticipated in that side, but the counties themselves, or the municipalities themselves, are going to have to take some of the growth, and Brunswick's is going to be a spot, one of them, but it's pretty much everywhere is going to have to, grow as well, grow with the county.
Okay. Are you all tracking an aging in place phenomena that's going on in most communities across the country where each successive year there's a slightly higher percentage that's senior population?
Yeah, I think that is a lot of what is happening, but there are also just,
People coming in and more people staying.
yeah,
Okay,
but
combination.
a lot of the anticipated development in these areas are to accommodate people who, live from one housing type and then move into another as their family grows, and then kind of shrink back into smaller units, and be able to do that by, having different, different housing types in the same neighborhood. So that is one of the goals that I think generally people are trying to do across the country.
One of the tools in that regard are called ADUs,
Yep.
accessory dwelling units. Is that something you already have in play?
They are existing in the county, but we do have, there have been some like restrictions with a lot, part of the, there were a lot of special exception hearings for these, and we bumped up the size of the dwelling units and of the ADUs to prevent so many hearings going to the zoning hearing board. But I think the biggest thing that's going to happen is the state action there with what the task force that was created through the state. I think there'll be some sort of legislation down the road that will legalize it from the state and sort of open it up that. I mean, a lot of the other states have done similar bills like that. I know California and I think Oregon and Washington have been pretty big on those reforms. But ADUs are also part of the missing middle housing types, which kind of range from the duplexes, the triplexes, the quadplexes, and just other types that can, be incorporated into neighborhoods to kind of encourage the aging in place.
Excellent. Good, thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Justin? Anybody? Okay, thank you. Do you want to read Hannah's
Sure.
comments? Okay, thanks, Bill.
Let's see. You got them?
Here we go.
Okay. Okay, and these are Hannah's comments that she was going to share with us for Carroll County. Under the water and sewer category, fall amendments are due August the 1st. Let Andrew Gray know if your town is requesting a fall amendment ASAP, so he will schedule an in-person meeting to discuss. And there's a note, the BCC adopted plan was sent to MDE on May 21st, 2024. Second topic, housing study. The website is now live at https www.carrollcountymaryland.gov/housing study. The website has the survey, information about the study, a timeline, a sign up to receive updates, and the community needs assessment meetings and events that are already scheduled around the county. Contact Tiffany Fawcett at tfawcett@carrollcountymd.gov for more information. Third topic, 2023 annual report. We've given presentations of the report to the County Planning Commission and to the Board of County Commissioners to update them on the development that occurred over the past year. The next step is to send the final report to the Department of Planning, MDP, by the 1st of July. Next topic, zoning text amendments, food processing /DAF residential storage. The county is currently in a moratorium regarding the storage of these residuals. The BCC gave staff direction to look at our zoning code in restricting the storage of these residuals. It was discussed with the county on May 21st. There was a request for, additional consideration on 5/30, and then schedule has come back for feedback on June 27th. And lastly, the Mount Airy Draft 2023 Comprehensive Plan was sent to the town Carroll County's, the town was sent Carroll County's comments by July 1. And if there's any follow-up, then simply contact her, Hannah Weber, at her email address at carrollcountymd.gov for any questions.
Thank you.
Any feedback that we want to make
The
sure
only thing I want to add
advocates?
to that is we do have on our website and on our Facebook page, we have a QR code to do the housing study survey. We also have in the lobby a place where you can scan it as well.
Oh, great. Thank you, John.
Good.
Okay, so next item on the agenda is the introduction/discussion of the open space waiver for the concept plans. This is the worksheet we talked about last time, so we need a motion for discussion, right, Tom? You don't? Okay. All right. So does anybody have any feedback on the open space waiver worksheet that we want to talk about? Is everybody comfortable with it, or is there anything we need to add to it? Because this is, this is for all of us to understand and use in the future.
I will start off real quick with saying this is a revised open space waiver worksheet from the previously one. Stephen O'Malley made the comment of it being too complex. So this is a much more streamlined effort. Again, this waiver worksheet is going to be used this evening, possibly for the Green Tree property. And it might be a conditional approval that the waiver itself might come in the July meeting for approval. Because again, approving, if this is approved tonight, it'll be brought to us in July. We'll go through it and approve or deny the waiver at that point. Excuse me. If it has to be modified, then in the July meeting, we wouldn't be doing that. We'd be going through this waiver request, or waiver worksheet. My thought is that if we have to modify this going forward, that's something we can do at the planning commission level. So I feel like if anybody has any drastic comments, we should put them down in writing and try to modify the worksheet again to bring back in July, or approving this worksheet for applying it to the Green Tree property and possibly other lots coming in
Right.
play.
So I have a comment about number 3. I think that needs to be broken out into bullets or something, because as written, it's a lot.
Would you consider like check boxes?
No, just bullets.
Just bullet it
Just
out?
bullets so
Okay.
that we can understand, because as written, there's a lot going on there. And I think it makes it kind of difficult to understand and decipher.
On page 2,
Yes, page 2, sorry, number 3.
Instead of one long sentence?
Right, if we
Right.
could break that into meaningful bullets, I think that would help.
Okay.
John, what's the context and the history on a worksheet like this? What have we had in the past, and how similar or different is this compared to that?
well, again, this was some new code that went into place that we have to then quantify and also memorialize the open space. Typically, it would be on the plans and would be part of the final staff report or concept staff report for approval. But because we're in a deficit, the request is to have more of a comprehensive overview of that project or projects.
I'm also not clear on number 5. If this is a set of questions, I don't think that belongs there.
May impose, are you saying it's vague?
Well, it's like other. If this, yeah.
Okay.
All of the other ones are pretty clear. There's some criteria there.
Yeah.
That you're supposed to answer to, and then this just says, it's just a statement telling you what you have the ability to do,
Right.
so.
Which is kind of says it's unsaid. It's telling, yeah.
Well, I mean, maybe you could say, are there any other, conditions, to consider, or I don't know.
Well, we kind of say that in 4. Any other factors deemed relevant for the, so is anybody objecting to striking number 5 altogether? Well,
I think striking number 5 is a good idea.
okay.
I think it's too much. We are capturing it in 4. If there's
Okay.
any other
Yeah.
conditions that we need to address.
What's that statement that employers always say, other duties as required? Which is very vague. Okay, does anybody else have any comments on the commission? Because I think Ron's got a comment, but I want to give us a chance.
I agree with Heather on 3, that
Okay.
it needs to be broken out.
And we're comfortable with striking 5?
Yes.
Okay. Tom, any input on that?
Well, I think 5 is meant to get at subsection, separate subsection. So in number 4 on this worksheet is meant, I think, if there are certain factors that are unique maybe to a certain project that might cause the planning commission to either approve or not approve, as the case may be, the open space waiver, 4 is meant to set forth what those things may be. The 5th question, subsection 4, gets to really any conditions you may wish to impose on an approval by way of example. So I think that this worksheet is just simply working through the ordinance as it was enacted a year or so ago. And so, I do kind of read 4 and 5 as a little bit different. They're getting at different things.
So perhaps we just reword 5 as
Yeah.
any conditions to be imposed on granting the waiver.
I agree.
Yeah, that's a better, yeah. Okay, so we won't strike it, we'll reword it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay,
Upon granting the waiver.
upon granting of
Any
the waiver.
conditions imposed upon granting.
Granting the waiver, that's a really good way of phrasing it, Brian, thank you.
What do you think, Mr. Thompson? Sounds good.
Do you want to come forward and,
He's ready.
he's ready.
Brian, can you, I'm sorry,
no, go
really
ahead.
quick. What was the sentence again?
Any conditions,
To be imposed?
any conditions imposed upon granting the waiver. We can play with that and maybe
Yeah.
wordsmith it a little better.
Thank you, Brian. Okay,
Madam Chair and members of the Planning Commission, Ron Thompson, Van Mar Associates. My comment is, having worked with open space, the waiver, I somehow feel as if we're trying to complicate the process with the form here. We're required as an applicant, and you have that in your packet tonight, where we've provided a letter justifying what we believe is the waiver and going through each one of those conditions. So it seems to me that if I've done the work in summarizing in here, the open space, what's being provided, all of the elements of it being provided, that from the Planning Commission workload and perspective, to me, I think it would be easier for you all to have reviewed the letter and say, yeah, we all agree that the applicant has met the conditions, and we approve, then we can approve the waiver rather than going through a rather laborious discussion process. At that point, then it could be that the chair, or depending upon the vote, and of course, we're meeting our more than 3 acres per 100 for Green Tree, that either the chair or the Planning Commission director fills out the summary sheet and puts it in the file, along with the record of the vote. Rather than, right now, you would have to go through and make subjective type of thoughts on it, and for each member to go through and comment on all of those items, I think isn't the best use of your time, particularly when you've been given the documentation, which John now requires to be submitted along with the 25
Right. 25.5C.
C and D there, too, in terms of environment and financial impact. So that's my comment to you.
What are we beholden to based on the town council's new ordinance?
So the ordinance simply says, "The Planning Commission shall memorialize its determination to grant or deny a waiver under the subsections above, and its supporting rationale." It goes on to say, "in a formal written memorandum which shall be made available to the public." So I think what this is getting at is, if you're going to grant or deny, you've got to set forth why you did it. Because if you don't do that, then it may be arbitrary or considered arbitrary and capricious. It may not be, there may not be consistency.
And what I would suggest to you is that this provides you with the documentation for you that's meeting the condition of what's in the code there. And then if you've accepted this and vote to accept it, then if the summary sheet or something on top of it then meets the conditions of the code. So that's my suggestion.
So you're saying like your documentation should be sufficient?
I spent a lot of time to go through it, and, we talked about not only that, but, mine goes through the resource, the requirements of what elements are in there and how we're meeting all of those elements that you don't capture in this. And then at the end, I answer each of those questions on how we're either meeting or exceeding them. In a commercial project, I would say exempt, exempt, exempt. But for this one, I calculate the number of people using the town, 2.75 number of units, and then what's required, what's given. We even give you a table in terms of, on each one of them, here's the total area, then I've got to deduct the elements that aren't eligible to be counted in open space. So you get all of that rationale in this type of document.
But if there's a denial, however, you would have to
Yeah.
create some memorandum to say why you did it.
This sort of, yeah.
This is kind of our check and balance of what, and we appreciate your diligence on what you've provided. But I think from the Planning Commission standpoint is that we need to do our own check and balances to ensure that if this is denied, then we need to make sure that we have our i's dotted and our t's crossed. Is that correct, Tom, in a sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, you could do that with either the worksheet, I gather, or a memorandum, as this ordinance says. I mean, typically in other contexts, for instance, like a Board of Appeals, you would have a formal written findings and decision. And you create that so that if it's appealed to a court, they know why a body did what it did, what the basis for the decision was.
Barney, are we still in a somewhat of a deficit mode? And if so, by how much?
Sorry, you were talking about water, I'm sorry, open
Open
space.
space,
Open space,
yeah.
yeah, we're somewhere around 70, I want to say it's down below 80 acres, but somewhere close to it. We did an update, and I don't remember what the number came out to be.
Of town-owned open space. Not total open space, but town-owned open space.
Correct, which is what we use for our calculation.
So that everyone understands, like all the ball fields aren't counted in open space. all the recreation areas.
Right. Okay, John, do you have any comments, thoughts?
No, I don't think, I don't have any additional comments. I guess I appreciate all Ron's work here as well. Ultimately, like Tom is saying, if we approve the open space waiver, I mean, we still have to memorialize it in some way, in a memo, accepting it, or if it's denied. So I think the supporting documentation would be part of what would go in the file with that memorandum. So,
Our
I
memo.
mean, right, and I think, for this parcel here, this property, clearly looks like we should be granting a waiver, because they are providing their fair share. And in addition, well, that's good. I'm good.
You're good. Okay, Heather, do you have a comment?
So I guess the question is, if all the developers provide something similar to this when they come in, and we know that the planning commission has to do something here to memorialize the decision, the question then to me is, who is responsible for completing this worksheet? So, because it sounds like there's a decision of, Ron's suggestion was just one of you can go and write the decision of the commission based on the discussion, I'm assuming? And then, or is it that you want every single person to document their?
I believe it's everybody has to fill it out.
Yeah,
I don't think we have to, because the code doesn't state that we all have to fill it out, right?
it says planning
No.
commission. Yeah,
Planning Commission.
The way
yeah,
this normally works, the body will make a determination, and through the discussion, we pretty well know why a decision was made, and you memorialize it, and typically you come back to the body, like in a formal written findings and decision, the body will come back in an open session and approve those written findings. They might make some changes, they might say, McCarron got it wrong. They often do. But the point is then it's the body collectively, at least a majority vote, saying these are, we as a body agree these are the reasons we did this.
Yeah, I think the key is that when somebody's coming in for a decision, when we're having the discussion, we need to be mindful of what these criteria are and make sure that we are speaking to these in that discussion, which would enable the body to document the findings and.
yeah. Now, John, for the bottom part, the baseline info, will you guys be putting that in when we get our packets?
Yeah, so
Okay.
if this workshop, like you're saying, worksheet, I would then be filling this out and making copies of it as part of the packet.
Okay,
And an example, like Ron's submission here for his request, he does go through and hits A, B, C, and D, and E,
right.
or A, B, C. That was D and E. But he does explain basically hitting these target points in the back, which I think, again, is a requirement now that they have to provide at the concept plan stage.
Now, are you reviewing, is staff providing their kind of check?
Right, I would go through, and we go through this, and we verify that these are what actually matches the plan, and that would be what I'd be memorializing on this document.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so it sounds like we still need to make a few changes on this sheet, so I don't know if we're ready, it doesn't sound like we're ready to approve the whole thing. Approve the form. Or can we just say,
Can we say approve with the comments
It's up to you all whether, you want
can I recommend that we approve with the amendments we discussed?
yeah, okay. All right, so you want to make a motion then?
Sure, I'll make a motion to approve the form with the amendments we discussed, including bulletizing the content in number 3 and turning number 5 into a question.
Okay, and is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay.
I didn't mean to interrupt, but none of them are in the form of questions I noticed on the back. It says worksheet questions, but they're all just statements. Do you think that maybe all of them should be posed as?
You want to come to them?
Yeah,
Oh, sorry.
sorry.
I don't know what I just did with that, with the form. I lost the form. Hi, my name's Jessica. Jessica Haven. I live across the street from Green Tree on Candace Drive. I just was looking through the form, and it looks okay to me, except none of the worksheet questions are actually questions, they're all statements. And it would, for me, as a person who's not involved in all of this all the time, if it was actually posed in the form of a question, it would seem more logical to me, all of them. So not just number 5, but, instead of the extent, you say, to what extent is the open space in the proposed development exceeding the minimum requirements as set forth? And then, actually put these statements as questions. I don't know. Just pointing that out, that's all.
We can rename the worksheet, but we do have it open. We have a motion and a second, I believe, so.
Okay.
Yeah. So we need to go ahead and, sorry. Do you want to amend it or?
Motion.
Yeah, okay.
Amend your motion.
I'll amend my motion as follows. We'll take out the word questions at the top. We'll call it the worksheet. We'll keep everything the same, except for number 3, break it out into bullets. And number 5, we'll reword any conditions to be opposed upon granting of the waiver.
Okay, and we have a second?
I'll go ahead and second that.
Okay, all in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Okay, it's approved.
Thanks for bringing that
Yeah,
point up.
thank you.
Thank you, sorry.
Okay,
It's even clearer now.
yeah. Okay, all right, so next on our agenda, introduction and discussion and recommendation to staff for waiver request for subdivision modification request for Green Tree, APFO Park and Open Space letter for Green Tree, and Chapter 25 letter for Green Tree.
So I would defer to our applicant
Yeah.
for him to come back to the table and to start with the modifications for subdivision modifications request for Green Tree. And there are 2 letters in your packet, one dated August 17th, 2023, and the other on October 10th, 2023. And you can see the one was received by us in October. The second one, we don't have a record of receiving this one, but this was also, I think, an example of the Dennis subdivision that was presented to us. There was intersections that were in close proximity to the entrance onto Main Street, which occurs throughout the town. That's what I think his reference to this modification, but I'll defer to Ron to present his case.
Now, does anybody, I have 2 other letters, May 21st and May 15th, so,
So they are not the ones we're talking about first.
okay, so we'll hold off.
August 17th, correct?
Okay. Okay,
It may have been a typo that the information is the same. Thank you. Again, Ron Thompson, Van Mar Associate, with me tonight, Frank Potapan, with the developer. And by way of a brief, before we get into the subdivision request, is that we've been working on the concept plan, which was the concept, which is based upon the pre-concept sketch plan approved by the town council, and then as slightly modified, I would say, by town comments that have come through from town planner, county, and town engineer in terms of the concept plan that brings us here tonight. So what this subdivision, it's required in the code because of our location entrance drive. We have to talk about North Main Street and the Main Street. Because of its distance from Candace Drive, we do not meet the 750 or 635 feet. Plenty of site distance, and therefore, and I go through this, existing conditions, location of the subdivision with the Candace Drive, we can't get the 750 feet. I don't want to rush this here. And not approving the street spacing would pose a hardship on the applicant We only have one access drive out of the subdivision we don't have multiple points out of the subdivision. The red sunset actually serves as a safety drive because it's got a median in it. So that serves as the principal access for the Green Tree subdivision. We exceed the site distance requirements on Main Street, and there is no better location for Sunset Drive. So that's our first modification that we are asking for in there. The second goes to modification 2 on the internal street pattern. Because of the way that we have designed the street pattern with a large open space area, park area, it's made some of our internal streets less than the 200-foot requirement that's listed in the code. One is 155 feet instead of 200 feet separation. And again, the same type of discussion in here. That's due to the property that's being developed as a triangular piece of property. So it's not rectangular or square, rather difficult to do a street pattern and yet have a significant open space area for playground park type for the Green Tree Village residents. Again, it's a local street. We don't have through traffic that you would normally see as subdivisions are connected to subdivisions, whether Sterling Glen, Summit, Nottingham. You come in and it's all Green Tree traffic, not any other local subdivision coming through there, which eliminates that conflict. Again, our site distance meets or exceeds the requirement for vehicles, and not approving either of these two modifications would impose a hardship on us. We've adjusted the internal intersection based upon town engineer comments, and that's what you see in the concept plan tonight.
What's the bottom line impact of you not meeting these requirements which were created before maybe you were even considering putting this development in?
We would not be able to proceed with the development. In fact, this street pattern is basically the street pattern that's been carried forth. When did you start the project with the condominiums?
We had a prior approved plan for the 142, and the access point is basically the same point as that prior plan that was approved by Planning Commission and in the past.
Okay.
Okay.
Barney, did you have any concerns with this?
Yeah, I mentioned that they should definitely come and get a waiver because the code requires it. But with the entrance being 20 feet on each side, coming in is 20 feet, going out is 20 feet. If somebody was trying to make a left at that very first street, which is a little bit less than the 200, if cars couldn't go around them, then I would see a problem with it. But I don't see there being enough stacking to worry about the cars backing out into Main Street. That's part of what the worry would be. Okay. As far as the distance from Candace to the entrance, again, I don't see a problem with it. It's just didn't meet the code, so it should come to you. But I think it's located where it should be.
Okay.
So how many lanes then are coming out of the, in and out at that one entrance? So like.
It would be one in and one out. The street's a little bit wider, but again, we're accounting for truck traffic that would come in for the commercial center. We're accounting for fire safety to come in and come out of that entrance there.
Are you talking about the North Main?
This one? North Main and
It's at North Main.
Sunset Court?
Yeah.
That's correct, where it intersects.
So why would they come in at North Main instead of Candace into where the commercial space is?
So today, we're not talking about the commercial space at all.
Okay.
We're just talking about the main entrance into
Well,
the subdivision.
Ron brought up the trucks coming into the commercial space, so that's where it prompted my
Okay,
question.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, but assuming that there will, you can't really try to direct deliveries as much as you'd like to think. And again, that may change with a site plan, a final site plan, that would then come before you as to whether you continue with the Candace Drive intersection or not. But in working through the MXU-CC subdivision process, the county required that it's kind of dual. I got to do everything for stormwater management, but take the site, the commercial site, and set it off to the side because it is a separate
Approval.
process, site plan process.
So is it necessary for that island to be on Red Sunset?
Yeah, yes. For fire safety, you have to have a separation so that if someone was blocking one of the lanes, they can come in, emergency services can come in the other lane. I've gone through that with particularly Frederick County and Carroll, with fire services.
Is that entrance and exit area, is that the same width as the one in like the Sterling Glen neighborhood as well? Right off of Candace? Because I'll tell you that while it is wider, slightly wider than one lane, like when there's parents waiting for the bus, which I could see being an issue here as well, they are totally blocking that.
Now, I think that this is probably wider. It's 20 feet. You could fit two cars.
Yeah,
Side by
I
side.
think it's very similar, but what I'm saying is, if someone's not hugging the curb, it creates a blockage there. And so I'm not sure where school bus stops would be in this neighborhood, but I could foresee a problem. And then I guess the question I have is that how are we, if this is MXUCC, how are we separating discussion of the commercial from the residential?
At this point in time, like you're saying, we're looking at the subdivision. I understand what you're saying. I mean, the factor that the 75-25 ratio is present on this plan, but at this present time, there is, the commercial element is really not part of what we're looking at today. When we get to the final stage, it might become a separate plan that's being presented.
But I think the problem here, and we probably all recognize this, is that you really can't talk about these distances and things like that when you know that there's going to be commercial traffic. I mean, I'm not even sure how a larger truck would, make that maneuver from there. They'd almost have to go in through Candace. Yeah, so I'll end there.
So I'm still not understanding what the concern is on Red Sunset and North Main. What's the,
It's, I think, I don't want to paraphrase the town engineer, there isn't a concern. It's that our distance in the code requires 750-foot separation to Kansas, to an intersection. North Main Street is an arterial. We have 655. So we have to come in with a subdivision modification. There isn't I don't want to paraphrase Barney, but I think he said there isn't a concern. It's just that you have to have it approved.
Fair enough, Barney.
Yeah, the code just has minimum distances between center lines, and it's just a little bit under between the one road to another in both directions.
Can you maybe help us understand why the code requires that particular distance? Like, what do you gain by having more?
Just like any street, I mean, downtown from Hood Street to Prospect, there's like 13 or 14 entrances. Some of them are streets, some are entrances into, businesses. It's just a lot.
It's just to keep flow.
It's to keep flow going. When you come into the development, and somebody wants to make that left turn, that could back up traffic if you have people trying to come out and you have a little traffic jam at that little first intersection because it's so close to Main Street.
Or
But-
into the other.
Or into the commercial.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
correct. But again, I don't think it will be a problem with the amount of houses that we're talking about that are on the left side that, people would be trying to turn into. If people had trouble coming out on Main Street, but Main Street's not that crowded in that area, there will be a little more traffic coming from this, but I don't think it's going to be a problem.
Is there any type of traffic study that's required for this development?
Yes.
There was a traffic study done, and the traffic study was submitted to the town and to State Highway because North Main Street is State Highway.
Do we have a copy of that?
We
Yes.
do, yes.
Yeah, we
The town-
reviewed it. Our engineers have also reviewed it.
I mean, has the planning commission?
Yeah.
No, but I can make that available.
That'd be helpful.
And Barney, correct me if I'm wrong, would you help write the scope for that study? You had bullet points that you wanted to make sure were addressed in that study.
Yeah, as far as intersections that we want studied and stuff like that, so just for the initial.
So the traffic improvements include a widening along, which are in the plans, along the frontage, North Main Street, and the installation of a sidewalk.
When was the study, conducted after the pre-concept was approved or before?
It would have been after the
I think
pre-concept
it came
sketch
after
plan.
the pre-concept. There may have been some discussions before, but I don't think we received it until afterwards.
And the traffic study didn't have any red flags, they just,
Well, again, like Ron mentioned, they made adjustments, especially with a lot of comments that the State Highway had.
okay.
They had to adjust the, incoming lane, the deceleration lane, things like that.
The other thing too, in this plan, we show fewer units than was approved under the pre-concept plan. We lost it,
About 10, I think, or more.
based on stormwater management. So when the traffic study was done, it looked at a larger number of units.
So more people, more traffic. Okay.
It would be helpful to have that for us to make a decision for the waiver. Just, I would like to see it, to be able to make a good, solid decision on if we grant this waiver or not. I think it would just be beneficial for us to understand it.
But I also like hearing rationale and the discussion that's brought us to this point. I mean, that's the big picture of it. There's been a lot of consideration, there's been a lot of discussion, and there's been some tweaks as a result.
Brian, anything?
I don't have anything on that topic. You said something about the 200-foot to 155 feet.
You have three different criteria.
Right.
On an arterial, you have 750 feet between like Candace Drive and Red Sunset. The interior street, Green Tree Circle, is 155 feet from, but localized street, that's, they asked for 200, so we're 45 feet short. But again, we have an island there.
Okay.
So I just have one more question. So if if this were waived, and then this is built and there's some huge traffic issue, what mitigations would be available to the town or whoever on the state, if that's a state-owned road?
I'll speak first. The town, being approved, we've gotten here because of town comments. Your town professional, the engineer, making the comments along with the traffic consultant, not seeing any type of issues that would arise from the design.
Really
So,
popular restaurant.
pardon?
Really popular restaurant. More kids than you ever thought would be in the development, and school
I
buses
don't know
backing up.
More kids than we ever thought because of the trend today is downward in terms of size of families there. I don't see, because of the types of traffic patterns, I'm also a traffic engineer, did it for 20 years, so, you got different peaks of everything going on, so that lessens the type of conflict that you would see at an intersection.
And like you mentioned, a high-volume fast food restaurant like a Chick-fil-A usually has one of the highest numbers of coming and going cars. But that's, you can only make good, best engineering judgment on these things. There are traffic engineers. We have our own traffic engineer reviewing what their traffic engineers provided. So, I think we feel comfortable with what we're seeing. There is always that second entrance that I've always said Candace Drive is important to have, just in case you did have that. People have another way to go out, and then that would help lessen, what's at the front entrance. So I think it's always important to have that second entrance to that commercial area.
I think the other thing in the code, I'm not sure we're allowed to have a fast food restaurant
That's correct.
in this, so it's
We'd have a coffee shop, but not a fast food.
not a
I was,
fast
I
food.
was going to mention that. so.
Has everyone seen the parking around Liquidity? Just saying, it doesn't have to be fast food. You can have a really popular place. So,
Yeah, but those cars they're staying there for a while versus fast food where you have a lot more vehicles. And that makes a difference.
It does have a drive-through. If this moves forward, there is a drive-through, and part of the design was that they had to I required them to have a designated lane to be able
Queuing lane.
to queuing up, because you're not interfering with the parking lot, you're not hopefully backing out onto Red Sunset Drive. So again, that non-residential element will be reviewed at a later date. And I understand what you're saying, and it's good. And I know one of the comments from the fire department is that this entrance has to get increased to support truck traffic.
Which
But
we
this
can't
plan hasn't been modified because, again, we're currently looking at the subdivision of the whole parcel being the concept plan for the residential element, is what my staff report is really focusing towards, because this parcel is sort of in limbo at this present time, but it is moving forward. So again, that will be coming back in front of you at a later date for approval of the concept plan and a final plan.
Okay. Does anybody have any other comments? Because I think there's some public comment, or, yeah, that was I just wanted to make sure.
So my only concern is that Main Street can already be very busy.
Yeah.
And that's my only concern. If we're giving a waiver for this, we still have major congestion.
Well, that was one of my questions for Mr. Thompson. Is there, because there's a lot of lines on here, is there a dedicated, turn lane for people getting in there? Do you have a lane off for people to turn?
Not on Main Street, a left turn lane from Main Street in? No.
Okay.
Because of, it's a leftover state highway.
Yeah.
It's an arterial, but it's not Route 27. Route 27 was built to replace Main Street. So this really functions, although it's still an arterial, it's probably more like a collector in terms of, but it's classified as an arterial still for it. So, and we only have X amount of room, and a left turn lane was not a comment that came back from State Highway or the town.
So the
Okay.
state
So it's
made
just
no mention.
basically the one lane going north and south, and then just turning into the development, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And a lane coming out along it.
Yes, and a lane coming out.
But there's a decel lane here that'll be a new lane that'll be added to South Main, and an XL lane to coming out of the development.
Well,
There is also a shoulder on the right-hand side.
That's what I
as
was
well.
talking about.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Yeah, so
I didn't use the right
he's thinking, you're thinking the left turn coming in off of,
No,
heading
not a
on North
dedicated
Main.
learn, no, just lanes that help the traffic get out onto, to kind of
Yeah, so
merge
this is
onto.
an accel lane and a decel lane.
That's what I was
I'm
getting.
sorry.
That's what I thought
That's
that they were
correct.
speaking of.
Yeah.
State highway
So
require,
there's a way for people to, if they're coming in onto Main Street, that they can get into a
they get into a,
like a
call it,
shoulder lane, and then
an acceleration lane, an auxiliary lane right next to the travel lane.
so that the
And they
main
can be
traffic can continue.
parallel and can
Correct.
move in with traffic.
I believe the speed limit there is 25 miles an hour. It's not like we're getting
It's
on-
30 at that point, but it does drop to 20 a little farther down.
I mean, just, if
The
there's
new
a-
Mount Airy's finest has pulled many people over in front of the church.
there's talk about the congestion, I'm just, if there's people at ease of getting in or.
That's a requirement of state highway. And you'll see the double lane, we also
That's
have
what
to
I did
account
see, of
for,
course, that's what I need you to-
we have to account for a bike lane
Yeah, so here's.
That's a
bike lane too as
requirement.
well. You can see the
by state highway.
little rectangle right through here. That's actually a bike lane too, so there's, right.
Okay.
And I will say that if congestion becomes an issue here on North Main at the light, I would think State Highway would then, under observation, possibly change the timing of that to increase traffic loads coming off of North Main.
I'm actually concerned about the Candace as well,
Okay,
so.
But that, we're not talking about that yet.
Well, we are because it's not just the people
Yeah,
coming off 27, it's all the people who live on and in neighborhoods off of Candace Drive, and Buffalo for that matter, because a lot of them come up through Candace.
Are you talking about people making a left from Candace onto 808?
Yes.
Okay.
So is there a light going to be anywhere around there?
There's no traffic signal warranted other than the one that exists at North Main Street and Route 27.
27, right.
So it does not meet there are a number of warrants that you go through to determine whether you add a traffic signal. It's not even close on any of them to requiring one.
We are number 5 on their list, right? Out of 5. Maybe we'll get bumped up. Okay. Anybody else? Because I know some people have comments.
Question, I'm sorry. At the circle, at the end of Red Sunset, what is that? There's like a little, yeah.
that's additional parking spaces they provided for visitors.
Okay, and then
That
what's that?
roadway is really a widened trail utility road because the sewer line, we run a water and sewer line out through the property across BGE and then connecting to Sterling, do I got it right, Sterling Glen? Connection for it. So in order, the town wanted to have dual purpose. One is to serve as a way for their sewer trucks to go, if they've got to get into a manhole, clean it, do something, they've got a path heavy enough, wide enough for the truck to do it. Same time, it serves as a trail that then branches off into the,
Now,
So
will-
is there going to be some type of, something to block it off so nobody's driving
that was my question.
I think
Is
in,
there a gate?
a gator?
I generally like to see removable bollards that are, there are different types, but you can have them with a lock. Depends on what the town wants as a standard, but generally you have them about 5 feet apart. You know, bikes are just like cars. If you're driving and the roadway starts to narrow, you feel that it's gotten really small. Same if you're riding a bike and you come up to 2 rails, you don't want it right next to you because you go, oh,
Right.
there. So in this case, you would probably have about 3 bollards, removable bollards in there.
So Barney and Twin Arch, where Reading comes down and then the water sewer treatment plant, there's that little access road
Correct.
that we sometimes, would it be something similar to that? So I think that's chained off, if I'm not mistaken.
There is a gate halfway down.
Okay.
That they can close.
Okay.
It's not always closed, but,
Right.
because I know we access that ourselves sometimes. But yeah, it'd be something similar to that.
Okay, yeah. I was gonna say,
Yeah,
yeah,
no,
like,
I
we
got
keep
a couple
pushing.
things. So Gary Fry, Carroll County resident, I think, Ms. Walsh, you brought up a good point of what happens here. So there are assumptions that are used in engineering to develop this concept. Those assumptions can be wrong. Once this is built, town government, county government, state government are holding the bag. So that's part one. The town code is written for a certain distance. The reality is that distance is there for safety. This isn't just this little intersection on an island. You have the possibility of left turn here, then the possibility of left turn on Candace, and then the curve to the right. It is a complex series of things. The code is given a baseline for distances, because it's not just stopping distance, it's reaction time. It's all these things going together. The code was written, I don't feel like the code has changed in the most recent future regarding distances. And to that point, the developer and the engineer had a blank slate. They chose to choose this property. The responsibility of not meeting distances is on them, not on this body. There's a lot of different things that engineers can do to make this work, but not having to manipulate town code at the expense of safety. I mean, that's really what those distances are there for. It's for sight distance, it's reaction time, it's all those things come together. So I just wanted to put those things into play there.
And I will respond. We just don't go with wild assumptions. They're based upon solid engineering principles. The second is, I'm not going to design a project and put my professional stamp that I've spent 40 years on providing services, thinking that it's an unsafe project. When I stamp it, it's a project that I believe meets safety and all of the issues that are relevant there for it. Our waiver is simply a technical waiver. It's not impacting safety at all. But I come back to, because I do get my back gets up when I talk about my professional stamp that I got in 1978 and have kept it multiple states till now still.
Okay, Barney, all along Main Street, do we know the distances? Like, it's not consistently between, like, if you go up and down Main Street, there's not a consistent distance between every entrance to every street, right?
Definitely not.
So we've
Definitely
made we've granted waivers before, or?
Yeah, so the times that you're going to grant waivers are times where if this was a larger subdivision and the acreage was larger, you would have that room for that 750 feet.
Okay.
But you're working within an area that's already developed around it. You have Ellis Road that it's not a town road, it's a county road. And between Ellis Road and Canis Drive, both of those are county roads. And if you shift the entrance much further to the south, now you're going to be talking about distances to Ellis Road. And Ellis Road, you know, if you had planned everything at one time, maybe you would have made Ellis Road the entrance and you'd made it much wider, and that would serve this development and Candace Drive together. And they're, you know, plenty of distance apart. But you're working with an existing developed area, and this property is just not quite large enough for the distance for an arterial road, which is 750 feet. That takes, there's a lot of space there, and it's a small subdivision. So it applies, and I agree with Gary with, you want to plan that's in your code, but sometimes in existing areas, you have to waiver a little bit like that. Dennis subdivision was.
Yeah, the last
one
one
good
you
example.
approved was Dennis subdivision, which is more traffic on South Main Street down there. You know, people using Main Street as a cut-through, come-home route.
That's that's only five,
Yeah, it's fine.
roughly 5 units. So I don't want to compare that to this unit of this development because this is much larger scale. My issue is with safety at this point, that I don't know if I'm comfortable enough to approve it because of the fact of how busy it is. You already knew at this point when you were planning this division that you may have this waiver, and developing it to the code, that should have been in consideration as well, understanding the distances that are required set forth in the town.
So so where the entrance is right now, what is the distance from that entrance to the edge of the property on the southern edge there? Just roughly.
It's probably,
It says approximately from south of Candace Drive to the west side of North Main is 315. And then it says 590 north of Ellis Road to the west side of North Main, which would be somewhere around,
property line's 340 feet.
From
from,
one side to the other?
from this entrance
Yes, from
here.
that- From that
to here.
driveway, from the street to the property line.
So you could make up the distance and meet code if that road were a little bit further down?
Yeah, just get rid of that one house and move it down.
I'm just asking. I'm asking you a
not-
question.
Not really, because there's a whole, the whole site is somewhat balanced. Now you're moving now commercial through residential. You move down, I mean, you're not going to increase the size of the commercial site there. And I would come back with saying, this isn't an issue of compromising safety. You've had town engineer review it and say it's not compromising safety, professional, and you've had a traffic engineer and a state highway review, not compromising safety. So it's not, we're not planning an unsafe intersection.
Okay. Are there any other comments? Public? Does anybody want to say anything else? Do you,
I just wanted to know, when will we be discussing the commercial site? Yes, hi,
yeah, sorry.
Jessica Haven again, sorry.
Formalities being what they are.
Yes. I'm a resident, I live right over there across the street. I just was wondering, when will we address the concepts for the commercial site? Do you have the date for that
I don't
yet?
have a date for that currently. So
Not yet, okay.
Again,
I have a lot of concerns about that.
Sure.
Not so much the residential,
And
but
once we get to that non-residential element of the subdivision, I'll be posting it again as I've done in the
Okay.
past, and also sending out notifications. Have you been receiving the letter? The
Yes.
letters for the meeting? So
yes, I'm here.
that's great. I appreciate you coming.
Yeah, I mean, they are, as you said, they're connected. We're not discussing that today, but they are related, they're circulatory, they feed into each other, so we do need to talk about that, and I have a lot of questions for that, but I guess I'll have to bide my time. In the meantime, I would love to see that entrance move down a little bit, because as I have to exit and enter into Candace Drive every day, and it does seem a little close. I thought the entrance was going to be closer to the church than it is. Now that I'm seeing it laid out like this, it looks awfully close to Candace Drive. But that's just my personal opinion. I don't know necessarily if it's safe or not, but it doesn't, I feel like it doesn't need to be that close. Thank you.
Well, okay, so Ron, to be clear, Ellis Road is right there. And this is sort of, yeah, on the other side of the church. And then we have Candace Drive. And this entrance is just sort of the best place to,
It's the best
best you could
location
do.
because we're trying to, at the same time, good design practice, keep any type of commercial traffic
Away.
outside of residential areas where you have children in their yards and everything. So we're not, if I move the driveway down, now I'm putting a driveway that will take commercial traffic through residential. And that's not a safe condition at all. I mean, maybe I'm getting really old, but I even see the hint of a child, I'm almost at a stop condition creeping along, because the last thing I want, it's like my radar intent goes way up on it, and that's why you don't see this pulled farther away from the commercial site. It's like a separation, traffic-wise, from residential to commercial.
Okay, so speaking of that, will there be fencing for those front homes in the front yards? No? Okay.
No, they front on,
The HOA won't allow fencing in the front of the
Okay.
yards.
But there'll be like the sidewalk and so.
That's
there'll be
correct.
And the fencing has to be from the front corner of the house back.
Okay.
Nothing's allowed in the front yard.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Well, we wouldn't allow that either, because trying to pull out and looking right, you wouldn't be able to see up Main Street.
Okay.
Can you just quit, sorry.
I was just gonna say, anybody else, any other questions?
Oh, yeah. Can
Go
you-
ahead.
Can someone just really quickly restate, because there's a lot of different measurements in here. So can someone just quickly restate the distances that we're waiving? So I saw on one, we're looking at like 45 feet, right? Because it's situated 155 feet and it's a 200-foot spacing requirement, so it's like a 45-foot difference, right? And then, can you explain, so the Red Sunset Court, North Main Street, we're lacking how many additional feet? Or you're asking for a waiver of how many additional feet? 100. Is it 110? Or that's Ellis?
right now, we are approximately 320 feet from Candace Drive,
And you're supposed to be,
750.
so that's a 430-foot
Yep.
waiver request?
And from Ellis Drive, we're about 160 feet.
And that's supposed to be,
They're both 750. In the ideal world, you'd have 750. So primarily what this code, and again, I'll let the town engineer correct me, but if you're starting with a large subdivision and a blank slate, you look at these in order to how you lay out your entire street pattern with a 50-acre parcel. When you're now bringing it in and fitting it within existing infill, last parcel infill, you now try to make the best that you can do with an infill development.
Ron, what did,
We utilize this location because the previous plan that was approved by the town utilized this area. And we would have gotten the waiver back then at that time, correct, Ron?
I would guess so,
I would
yes.
assume so. Were you around for that, Barney? Well, the previous plan that was approved?
Yeah, but that wasn't a waiver at that time. That comes at concept. So that's what you're here for today.
so I have a question for you, Ron. So what is your total distance of your frontage along North Main Street?
Total frontage is roughly 650 feet. Just putting a scale on it. Make sure I'm measuring correctly, Joan, but along North Main Street, oh, wait, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, I'm correct. Along North Main Street to the church property line, about 650 feet.
So again, ultimately, you needed a waiver no matter where the location is, because you don't have even 750 feet along the front of your property.
No.
So What happened before when we approved? Was it this commission that approved?
That was many years ago,
Oh. Okay.
many years ago.
Many, many years ago. Okay.
2010, is that when it was? When was your original plan approved?
Later than that, but
Yeah.
enough to have expired, which brought this on.
Okay. Okay. So Tom, we need a motion to approve the waiver? Okay. Are we comfortable? Anybody want to make a motion? Do we need any more discussions? Any other, did you have another comment?
Oh, no, well,
Are you sure?
I did have one other comment, though. Sorry, once
Come on
again.
up.
I wanted to make sure that the developers and the town understand, just from living over here, that the church does have very bright floodlights lining that parking lot that shine out into that neighborhood. So you should all be just aware of that. That will likely not be a problem for builders and whatnot, but for the people who do move into these homes right next to the church, the floodlights are intense, and those of us who live down Candace Drive can, definitely still see our shadows at night. So that may be something that you have to address later, but anyone who's living along that side of the church is going to need blackout blinds. And that's it, my final.
Thank you. We'll reach out to the church and let them know.
That was what I was
they should be
hoping.
Full cutoff lights. The lights shouldn't be going past their property line.
Oh, wow, it's definitely, it's blinding.
Okay. Well,
We
we'll
brought
let
it
it
up to Ken, a couple of sessions ago, we brought it up. I just wanted to make sure I brought it up one more time.
We'll reach out to them to make sure that they're full cutoffs.
Okay, excellent, yes, thank you.
We're still at 3 years out before anything.
Before anything goes in, yeah.
Hopefully not that long.
Right, I've been there 4 years, though, and the lights have been on for 4 years, so
Okay.
just want to get that,
We'll let them know.
address that with the church. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
So I have just one more question. Ken, where does Streets and Roads Commission fall into this, if anywhere, fall into this process?
They do receive a plan for review.
Okay.
We had not received any comments back from them
Okay.
related to this.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Are we?
I would like to see, I don't know if I need to make a motion, but I would like to see the traffic study before we go to approve or recommend, just to take a look at it.
Okay. Does anybody else want to see the traffic study? Bill, Brian? You don't need to see it. Heather, you?
I don't need to see it.
We could, you could give it to us.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
It'll-
We can email it to you.
Okay. Because, I guess the main thing is there's no huge red flags from that traffic study that would
Correct.
compromise safety.
Correct.
Yeah, that would be my concern as well. But if it would have been brought up sooner.
Yes, and again, the traffic impact study goes to both Barney and I.
Right.
And engineering would be the one who would be commenting on anything outstanding in that respects.
Okay. All right, so we ready for a vote then? Someone wanted to make a motion, or do you want me to make the motion? What are you looking for, Brian?
Oh, I'll make a motion to approve the waiver
Okay.
modification request.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
A second? All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And nays?
Nay.
Nay.
2. All right, motion carries.
John, can you send this?
Yep,
You've already sent us the copy of that.
we'll forward that to everybody. Electronics okay with everybody?
Yeah, email. All right, next we have the APFO Park and Open Space Letter for Green Tree. Now,
Thank you. Let me take you through, I guess, a tour or summary of how we are doing on open space. With our population of 60 single-family units, we end up with a requirement in open space, 3 acres per 100, of 4.95 acres. In the letter, you'll see a chart that we have 3 open two open spaces and an HOA park. The town would own open space 1 and 2, which are wooded areas, and we'll talk, that also has the trail running through it. In a couple locations, it's like a loop trail connecting subdivisions. And we deduct out steep slopes and stream buffer, and we come out total with 7.64 acres, which is 154% of the requirement. We are exceeding the 3 acres per 100. The second page, I document that Town Code 9823K has 6 areas that should be high priorities for inclusion in designated open space. Resource buffers, which are in open space number 1 and 2, that criteria is achieved because they are protected. High-quality forest resources, again, there's a total of almost 7.9 acres of forest, and that's retained. Criteria achieved. Our disturbance for individual trees is simply whatever happens in the putting in the recreation trails. So we're minimizing that disturbance. Same with critical habitats. We've achieved both those criteria. Because we're retaining the forest, high-quality soil resources are preserved because we're keeping the forest. We achieve that. And then interconnectivity between neighborhoods, that criteria is achieved because we have pedestrian trails that connect Green Tree Village with Sterling Glen and the Summit Ridge subdivisions. There. So the Sterling Glen, and then there's a trail that comes off and up through, and we connect to that. So it's basically multiple connections for people to bike or walk, experience nature. In addition, we have a 1.7 acre recreation park, will be owned by the HOA for the residents of Green Tree Village. That has a combined pickleball court and basketball hoop, as well as a playground for the residents. The internal park provides a distinct recreation focal point for the Green Tree residents while not intruding on the surrounding residential uses. As we're aware in your earlier discussion, we meet the criteria of 3 acres per 100 people. We exceed that by over 50%. Nevertheless, under Ordinance 20-23-8, we have to provide documentation or justification for a waiver because the town is not at their town inventory of what they inventory for open space is not at 3 acres per 100. Criteria A, or was 1 on yours, I think, the extent that open space in the proposed development exceeds the minimum requirements as set forth in the code, we're proposing 154% of the minimum requirement, 7.64 acres or 154%. Magnitude of the town's park and open space deficit at the time that the waiver, whether the proposed development will increase or decrease the deficit. We're actually decreasing the deficit with the additional 2.69 acres above the minimum required for the residents, for the population of Green Tree Village. C, whether the development optimizes the proposed open space, and there are a whole list of green space, passive, active recreation, quality of location, suitability to the proposed development, whether the proposed open space satisfies a critical town need or proposes a shortage, amenities, accessibility of the space, etc. I did note in your master plan that, I'll go through this first. The proposed Green Tree Village proposes pedestrian trails that connect the neighboring subdivisions of Summit Ridge and Sterling Glen. The HOA park is situated that it provides an open area for all of the families within the subdivision. Family activities such as a combined pickleball court with a basketball hoop and a playground for the residents. Let me see if I can find this one piece of paper here. I noted in your draft of a master plan that under future park facilities, the number one desire was nature trails, walking, biking paths. We provide more than just a walking, it's multiple in there with our connectivity. Wooded open area was your second desire. Significant amount of space has been preserved as actually will be forest conservation, wooded open space. And the final ones are a little bit more down, but playground, just areas for residents, again, we are providing that. The final factor, any other factors deemed relevant? I simply stated the preservation of existing woods, environmental areas, providing pedestrian trails, and providing an HOA park with amenities warrants the granting of the requested waiver.
Okay. Okay, so.
Thanks for filling out our worksheet for
Yeah,
us,
I know, I
Mr.
was just
Thompson.
gonna say.
Appreciate that.
This is essentially the worksheets. Okay, any thoughts, comments? John?
My question is just for process, again, this would be the first time that we're working through this worksheet. So,
Right.
you know, I mean, I applaud Ron for providing this detailed breakdown. I'm just wondering to Tom for memorializing it, you know, if this becomes part of the record along with the worksheet or possibly a memo, sort of providing whatever the position of the planning commission is adequate to support the requirement of the code.
I would say yes. Basically, you know, all the code says is the decision shall be memorialized in a memorandum. I'm paraphrasing a little bit there. Nothing that says that the memorandum can't attach as an exhibit, by way of example, the submission and incorporate by reference. You may have some further discussion if there's further discussion here, but, you know, in a memorandum, but.
So do we need to make a motion just to accept this memorandum or approve it, or what exactly do you
I
need
think
from us?
it would be a motion to approve an open space adequacy waiver.
Okay,
That'll be the next step.
yeah, thank you.
Mr. Thompson, the 1.7 acre with the pickleball and the basketball and the playground, is that, rest of that area just going to be grass? Like a
Yes.
level playing field?
Yes,
type of
so
thing?
what came out of the town council when we initially had our pre-concept is that's not a large enough area for kids to run around, even have a small, put up some nets and run back and forth for soccer
Yeah.
or whatever. It's not regulation soccer,
A
but
purpose field.
yeah, just it'll be grass. It's draining at 2 or 3%. It's actually more than 2% because you get water standing there for it. It has, in the plans, you'll note there's an 8-foot-high fence along the wall, so that's safety. We've lowered the grades along all of the other areas there. So it becomes an area where kids can run around and play. Fly a kite, throw the ball. You know, like I used to take my son out to the yard and throw the baseball back and forth or go kick the soccer ball and set up a little net for him to train there. So all of that, that's why it's so large.
Okay.
It will be flat, it's very steep right now.
It's okay, come on.
I believe they're going to grade that so it's all flat.
Yeah,
It's gonna, because right now, I know you've seen it, it's
We have to
very
throw it
sharp.
in. We've got something like a 20-foot-high wall in some places there.
Oh, okay.
That it becomes, I think the grade is around 3 or 4%.
Okay, right now, I can't
2%,
picture
The
that.
water sits
Okay.
there. So you do want it to
And that's about,
soak in, but drain, not have puddles.
right, okay. Yeah,
Do you
Right
have
now,
any
it's like a
other-
12% or 15% grade. Okay, no, and you said this will be about 1 acre, this little field, or it looks about
1.7.
1.7 acres, the field itself? And that doesn't include the playground and the pickleball court?
That's inside of it.
Oh, that is inside of it, okay, thank you.
I'm imagining open space too is also going to be grassy too, right? That little spot in the back there?
That's forested. That's existing woods.
Oh, okay, so that's
So
going to be woods. Good.
it's going to stay woods. The only cut-through will be for the trail. Yes. Everything else stays woods. There's an environmental buffer, stream buffer there. So we've had to protect that, have gotten approval from Water Resources to add the trail and utilities through there.
Okay.
They're also providing 2 bridges across the existing streams. One down here attaching to, oh my gosh, Scotch Heather, and then also here connecting up to the existing trail that's
Right.
Go ahead.
Small little pedestrian bridge.
Okay. One more question. Okay, sorry, come on.
There are about 3, maybe 2 majestic trees on this property. Are you guys going to try to preserve those trees, or?
We had to go through, there are a couple trees that are in poor condition that
Okay.
are being, but one of the things, there is a tree, John, if you can point right down just a little bit where the path curves, there's a specimen tree there. So we had to curve the path outside of the canopy of the crown of the tree so that there's no disturbance to that tree.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, do we have any other questions, comments, concerns from anybody? Okay, anybody want to make a motion to approve, or? Okay,
I'll second.
okay, all right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? No? Okay, motion carries. Okay,
Very thorough, Ron.
Yep.
yeah.
Thank you.
Good job, Ron.
All right. Then the next item is Chapter 25, Letter 4, Green Tree. Ron, you want to?
Take you through this, yes. This is another requirement that, I don't want to say has been on the books for a long time and sort of recognized that we need to provide some formal documentation for it. But it really goes to what is the fiscal impact to the town or the fiscal benefit to the town. When we talk about, I do it in 2 sections. First of all, you look at infrastructure. Town infrastructure exists, and again, I apologize, I'm getting old. Instead of 14C, it should say green tree. That's why I have gray hair and very little left on top. There, it's under infrastructure, and doesn't require expenditure. The sanitary sewer through the site will be provided by the developer connecting all the way back to Sterling Glen. The water system will be provided by the developer. We are actually providing an additional benefit by looping the system. We're connecting the system in North Main Street. We're connecting it to Sterling Glen, and we're connecting it to Summit Ridge. To serve the development, you only really need one, but this is a betterment for the town in terms of equalizing pressure and water flow for their system. So no town improvements are required. Road access constructed by the developer, no improvements are required. Stormwater management facilities, again, all regional and on-site stormwater management will be constructed by the developer. No town improvements are required. Town inspection of improvements, well, the PWA requires 8% fee computed on roads, water, sewer, utilities, stormwater, forest, landscape, sediment control, and storm drainage. So again, the town is compensated for their oversight of being able to inspect as they require for the improvements. We look at impact fees. There's a proposed commercial building of 18,688 square feet and 60 residential units. The town has a permitting sheet of what is charged for a permit, either residential or commercial. And there's both water and sewer permit fees on a commercial building of one, and then if you've got higher flow, then you pay additional fees on top of that. And in this case, it would be an additional 4 EDUs, which is equivalent to 4 more homes there. There's a zoning permit fee, capital improvements assessment fee. So there's a total for the commercial building of baseline $61,270. Now, I will tell you that the impact sheet adds additional little $100 fees here and there. I didn't bother to include them. I took the big numbers for you. Residential buildings, you have 60 of them, and the water sewer permit fee is $25,500 per unit. And you have a capital assessment of $2,200. So your total impact fees or fees raised by the town from the residentials, $1.66 million. When you add up the total residential, commercial, and there's also a water expansion fund of $1,250 per acre, you come up with the total fees that would be paid of $1.7334 million to the town. And that's building permit type fees that are paid either at the PW stage or as each permit is pulled. Second part of this, so summary is based on the above analysis, the Green Tree Village MXU CC subdivision will not require expenditure of financial resources by the town of Mount Airy
It's not a financial
for the
burden.
development. Pardon?
It's not a financial burden, is what you're saying.
That's correct.
Okay. That's important to know.
Free ride. The second part of it was 25.5D. Is the development consistent with applicable governmental environmental standards, including those which address protection of sensitive lands, protection of water supplies or conservation areas, protection of natural resources, and protection of air and water quality? And the following bullets describe how we meet the standard of protection for environmental and natural resources. Stormwater management, we have on-site stormwater management that are provided, and the concept stormwater management has been approved by Carroll County Bureau of Resource Management there. Water resource protection, again, the concept plan's been approved by Bureau of Resource Management for the protection of groundwater, stormwater management, drainage. We also have stream buffer that we had to protect. That actually caused a little bit of a redesign, because in our initial submission, I didn't note it as stream buffer. They inspected it. We went back and had a specialist come out and map it for us. Forest conservation requirements are provided or satisfied through an on-site forest conservation easement. Landscaping plan is in accordance with the Town of Mount Airy Landscape Manual, and it's been approved by Carroll County, who does the review for the town. So in summary, on the above analysis, the proposed Green Tree Village subdivision project is consistent with applicable government and environmental standards, including those which address protection of sensitive lands, protection of water supplies or conservation areas, protection of natural resources, and protection of air and water quality.
Okay, any questions from anyone?
Mine's clerical. Should Mr. Thompson change the Lot 14C to Green Tree Village MXU-CC subdivision, just for the record?
Yeah, so I was going to ask him to do that so we can have it as the
Yes.
permanent record.
Okay,
Correct.
that's it.
Okay, anybody else? No? John, do you have any
Nope,
other than that?
nope, I think that's good.
Okay, so this is just inserting, we have to approve this, or?
So this is a part of approving the APFO certification. Those are two of the factors.
So we need
You
a
already
motion.
approved the open space waiver, so you're just approving the rest of the APFO.
Okay, thank you. Okay, do we have a motion to approve?
I'll motion to approve the documentation of compliance with Town Code Chapter 25-4C and D for the P-21-0002 Green Tree Village MXU-CC subdivision, with the clerical addition of Lot 14C being removed from infrastructure and in its place, Green Tree Village MXU-CC subdivision.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any nays? No? Okay, motion carries, thank you.
How long
Okay,
have y'all been working on this? How long has it been a possibility?
How long have we been, Frank will tell you, too long?
We submitted our first plan to the town the fall of 2020. I had our first meeting with town staff January 7th, 2021.
That's not too bad, really.
Well, and one of the issues, we'll talk a little bit about it when we go through the concept plan, but, you know, when you're doing stormwater management, you're essentially going beyond concept design, which is what Carroll County is different than Frederick and other counties in terms of level of detail to get to that point. So that takes time to go through that process, and it's a rather complicated process.
okay.
Hence, that's why you have a 21-page, or how many pages this plan is. You know,
Right. Okay, next one. Introduction discussion of the concept site plan and pattern book for Green Tree Village.
I'm up again.
Take it away.
I think you've seen the concept plan, and we've talked a little bit about it in terms of its flow pattern. I will address a couple things in it that will be modified in the preliminary plan. For instance, you know, we're in the process of installing the streetlights on Backacre Circle, trying to get that completed. There is a new standard that we will be using, that the town is using, which is LED dark sky lights. So you'll see a detail in here, which is the old detail. That will be upgraded because that new standard, Barney can correct me, will be the 3000 K LED dark sky lights. And basically, they don't have the glass plates around it and the bulb kind of extending down for it there. We also have some refinement in stormwater management, but we're The next phase of preliminary design, hopefully with the concept plan approval, is we get into more of the detail of the utility design profiles, making sure that we can service all of the lines there. I've provided in some of my like sanitary that if there's an extension out a little bit into Main Street, so that, and a valve, so that if there was ever development of the parcel across the street, they would have a place to tie into there without having to redo the entire system. We get into more detail in terms of profiles. You'll note that I do want to note, Steve is not here, he would probably slap my hands that I don't quite have landscaping.
plans?
But you'll notice in my chart, there are a lot of Ys there, yes, 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 yes. I just have a few bushes on the median, I think 5 of them
Page
there.
again, Ron?
Page 19, in terms of,
John, do you want to bring that up on the big screen and
Sure, I
let
can.
Ron walk us through it?
Sure, I can.
so I put a lot of effort anymore into trying to find native species for the tree, which is sometimes difficult there. But the chart down there at the bottom has, and on your page, has the Y, yes, yes, whether it's native species or not.
I'm trying to bring up the chart
There you are.
in my left hand.
So we have the non-native species of,
Some honey locust,
the honey, the shade master and the,
there are 5
Spray.
bushes on the median that have some color. Spirea, you see a lot in your gardens where they change color. They blossom and change color.
Flowering dogwood.
so they're going to be in front of the homes facing Main Street, and as like a little bit of, is that what I see? I see.
No, along Main Street are the redbud, because we have Potomac Edison power line. So along Main Street, we have to have the smaller tree
Yeah,
to not interfere with the power line.
right, okay. How is that going to, how large do those trees get? Is it going to interfere with the visibility of,
No, they're more of an ornament, they're considered an ornamental tree,
okay,
which is why I get half credit per planting unit for those type of trees than if I were putting a larger tree that would grow up, like an oak or something.
They're set back enough that people can see.
They're actually behind the sidewalk.
Okay.
yeah, look at the
Yeah.
other sides.
And also, the site distance is at 3.5 feet off of grade. So wherever the pavement is, that's where they measure the 3.5 feet at the sight line.
Okay,
I've actually set them back outside of the, in the lots themselves.
all right.
Other elements, which we've talked about before, particularly in the pattern book, we do have a fence, an 8-foot-high fence along the retaining wall there, in the playground area for it.
Oh,
And, that kind of becomes the standard type of fence either, which would be carried forth if the HOA allows fencing of individual lots. It'd be a 48-inch black wrought iron fence, so there's a consistency, a continuity of look throughout the subdivision.
well, does anybody make wrought iron fencing anymore, or do you mean like black aluminum fencing?
Pardon?
Black aluminum is.
A
what it's
black
called.
aluminum?
Black aluminum.
Yeah,
That's correct.
okay, not wrought iron.
No, it's black
It's just
aluminum.
look.
Sorry, the old,
Yeah.
it's all
Sorry.
black
I was like,
aluminum.
where are you getting wrought iron?
Not anymore.
Yeah, no.
That's what I think of when I think of the ornamental fences, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
This plan is consistent with what was approved in the pre-concept sketch plan. The other thing is that we have provided internally, I think it's 3 locations for mailboxes, so it's dispersed, not all in one location.
I recall in our last conversation, we're going to check with the postmaster on the location of those mailboxes, weren't?
We're not quite there yet because I don't have anything approved to go talk to them about.
Okay.
So I kind of, well, how far? Well, it hasn't been approved. Well, come back when you've got something approved to show us.
Where are they? Like, so there's one by I see one by the island.
One by the island, there's one at the end of the cul-de-sac down there. And I got to try to find the other one. I think there is another one in there somewhere. Those 2 are for sure.
Green Tree Circle.
Okay.
There's a community mailbox, I remember that one.
Yeah.
That was,
Oh,
I
I
think.
Right.
I see.
Right, so on Green Tree Circle, the first intersection off of Red Sunset, thank you, Barney, there by Villa 1, the open space of Villa 1. There's a little bit of green area there, so that's where, just below the plan, there would be a community mailbox right there. One up in the island off of the main drive-through, and then at the cul-de-sac.
And this, these mailboxes, they're designed for people to walk up to them, or do you first, like, I'm just wondering if people stop on their way into the house, it's not going to impede the traffic?
They're
or
the typical,
flow?
we provided a detail of what they look like.
Okay.
It's sort of like what you see along Main Street,
Right,
those type of community mailboxes.
yeah, because everybody I know, like, they just walk to their mailbox.
They could walk to it, they could stop on the way home if they wanted to.
But it doesn't look like there's like a place to stop.
You don't, in subdivisions, you don't have a pullover. Again, you get to the fact, you add more impervious area, all of a sudden, you're not being very green-oriented, environmentally sensitive, because you're adding more pavement, more stormwater management treatment.
Gotcha, okay.
Again, I've brought the playground equipment more closer to a central location of this. In fact, the playground is less than a 5-minute walk for anybody within the subdivision to get to the park and the equipment. And I should say, 5 minutes of a child walk, not pace that my wife walks at. What else is there specific about the plan itself? Has a monument sign. We also, you'll see in the pattern book, one of the comments, last comment I'll make for any questions. You also, at the last time we were in front of you, you said there's just not enough parking for people to park. And we've been able to provide 51 spaces along the street for parking throughout. That includes that little parking area up there that was asked about, going off the side, as well as along the street. And again, these are town streets that are over 32 feet wide. And that diagram is in the pattern book.
Ron, you said, I'm sorry, you were saying about, you were talking about parking. Where is that again?
If
For
you
the
go
townhouses?
to the pattern book here.
Right?
The last sheet of the pattern book.
Uh-huh.
Hopefully, you've got what I've got, little cars showing on there.
Okay,
We're all dispersed throughout where people can park.
okay, so you're saying that it's gonna be parallel parking?
Yes,
And then you have,
there's some perpendicular parking for the trail there.
right? So you have what, 6 spots there?
7?
8, I think, 2,
8,
4,
okay.
6, 8 spots there.
And this is mainly as guest parking. This is not residential.
This is gas parking.
It's gonna be residential.
Yeah.
Let's just face the facts.
Well,
Sorry.
you know, I'm not so sure, not overnight parking, we would, not on a regular, because we're providing garages with parking area for 2 cars on the driveway.
So the garage can handle 2, the driveway.
Driveways can handle 2.
Well, the garage can handle everyone's stuff. and
Right.
The driveway will have 2 cars.
Exactly.
Let's look at, be realistic.
And that,
Kind of, it's interesting, it's, if people have the opportunity of a rental space, I do. I can't stand too much clutter, and I like my car in the garage. I don't want rain, sun on it, beaten down. It will be in the garage, and if I've got to go pick up my Christmas decorations after Thanksgiving, I'll drive to the local storage unit, put them in the back of my vehicle, and make a couple trips back and forth on it there. So you're seeing, there's one of the reasons why you're seeing like CubeSmart coming into town. There is that type of demand that people want, rather than, that's not to say there are those, I walk on a street and I look and I can't understand why the lady has everything in the garage and 2 cars in the driveway, but she's about the only one I ever see for that. So it's a mixture of it. You
and
can't,
I can tell you in a townhouse, so I live in a townhouse, and my car's too big to fit in my garage now. And so I have to park on my parking space and not even in my driveway because my driveway's too small and I can't exceed into the sidewalk because then we get fined by code enforcement by blocking the sidewalk.
What I will
So
tell you-
that's my only concern is that we don't have overflow parking. And I can tell you, probably 90% of my neighborhood with garages don't park in them. I would say maybe 10%, and I would be really reaching at 10.
well, we have allotted for your developments, a lot of it, there aren't really driveways for many of the townhomes, I believe, right?
It's a space.
But-
It's a
Well,
shorter setback.
it's a shorter setback too,
But
right?
what
But still,
what we've aligned for is 20 feet of parking, driveway before the sidewalk. Very specific that you can handle my Lincoln Navigator, park it in the driveway.
Yeah.
And it will not be hanging over the sidewalk.
right. I have a passport and it can't fit in my driveway, so,
Or your garage.
or my garage.
Wow. Sorry.
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to raise a question about the HOA. I mean, will they, for this on-street parking, is that something that the HOA will sort of go around and say, because you're saying it's mostly for guests, but we're thinking it's not going to be for guests,
Well,
so.
it's a public street,
Okay,
so I don't know, without consulting with the town, what those enforcement would end up being, but it's a residential like you see in Twin Ridge, you know, you have people will park on the street.
yeah.
You may put no parking on one side of it or something like that. But again, it's a public street, so from that perspective.
So I have a question about does the fire department have any, do they know about this now, street parking, and does that impact the width of the streets and their input to approving the streets?
I don't know if they've seen this plan, because it wasn't part of the actual concept plan. I'll make sure that I forward this to Doug Alexander tomorrow for his review. But I would think that if it got down to, again, these are going to be town roads, streets that are being dedicated to us. If there becomes a problem where it's impeding their abilities, we're going to be putting no stopping, standing, or parking.
Yeah, and I have concern about on Green Tree Circle, as you're coming in, right at the entrance, down here at the bottom, those four, people pulling out of their driveways, being to back up, and then somebody coming around that corner, not seeing somebody pulling out of their driveway, those cars being hit right there. What's the distance from, is it enough that if they're backing out,
You have a 34-foot roadway, which is the town standard for residential. So if you put a lane parking 8 feet for that, that would leave 26 feet of roadway, essentially two 13-foot travel lanes.
so is there enough, if there's 4 cars parked there and they're not hugging that curb, is there enough for lanes either way?
Yes.
It's not people coming in and turning left onto Green Tree. They're not gonna have to go into the other side if somebody's coming around.
Correct. In the 34-foot, typically, a travel lane can be anywhere from 10 to 12 feet.
Okay,
We have 13.
okay. Sorry, I'm not
Each
very good on
direction.
that
No, that's
portion of
fine,
it.
yeah. There, so that's one of the, I guess, town standards to ensure that you've got plenty of access on the streets.
Is your intention to be providing striping on here as well? Or is this just, normally it's not striped unless it's required?
Residential streets are not striped.
Right. But I would think the entrance along Main Street, we should have those striped with indicating either somebody turning right or turning left, leaving at Main Street. And I think that was Brian's concern about, I was thinking we should have some kind of
Are you
a.
going to divide the,
No. No, we're not planning a right or left turn lane out of the site.
yeah, just be the,
Right.
just the width? That's
Yep.
People get to decide.
This is not a high-traffic volume development.
Be no parking.
Speak to this plan.
Yeah. Does anybody have any immediate question? Okay.
Okay, so a couple things I'm hearing. So the comment was made, this is what we're thinking we're going to work, but if it's a problem, we're going to go, no parking signs. That's an afterthought. It's not, you're being promised this, but down the line, that's not what the reality is. So that's an expense to the town that you were just told you don't have. The other thing I didn't see on any of this is representation of a crosswalk. Again, the town pays to refresh the crosswalks yearly. So that's one other thing. And then, can anyone tell me who's got the right-of-way in the circle? And which way has priority, especially with all those cars parked there? Because I can't. You ask a 17-year-old who's dropping off a buddy at the house who doesn't know which way, they could go straight across and get hit from the side. It's only 25, though. It is only 25, but it's still an accident. It's reactionary. It's not, in my mind, that's not a natural flow. I realize we're trying to jam a peg into a round hole or square hole. This doesn't flow. I don't think it's the right answer there, but especially when you see all these cars parked here, it draws the attention to the disjointment of the flow. Thanks.
Well, your comment, Mr. Fry, sorry, your comment, where did you see the crosswalk?
There isn't.
There is a crosswalk.
Oh, right
There's a
there.
crosswalk right there.
Okay, were you thinking there needs to
Does there
be
need to be another one?
could you show me?
So in my mind, after listening to Streets and Roads meetings,
Okay.
they're going to want to put more crosswalks in. Traffic calming, that's all things that they've traditionally done because when the original design comes through, it doesn't reflect that. But I would put high confidence that probably to the left of where that green tree circle is, they'd want to do a crosswalk going over to the commercial. Again, this is supposed to be a walkable thing, so, you know, nobody's going to walk towards Main Street to go that way if they're in that middle block. They're going to go straight across. Again, these are all expenses to the town because they do maintain the crosswalks yearly.
My response would be if roads and streets ask for crosswalks to be painted, then we're going to add them. Now, I haven't received a comment to add any more, but if they add them, then we'll add them. And, you know, we're right now at concept. Again, now preliminary, we go to slightly enlarged plans. You know, these are 50 scale, they go to 30 scale, so you can see more detail in them.
And yeah, this concept plan has been forwarded to Streets and Roads. We have not received any comment related to crosswalks.
Barney, do you have any concerns about the crosswalks or?
No, we've made comments about crosswalks already.
Okay.
They haven't, I won't say they've been fully addressed, but I think we've said that they can be addressed at the final stage,
At the preliminary plan.
And it's not
or the preliminary plan, sorry.
a huge engineering problem to add a crosswalk. Like, I mean, it's just paint? Or you cut into, oh, that's right.
Well, all of them have, we have to have at the intersections, ADA ramps.
They already exist, and that was part of our comment, was to show crosswalks at certain places.
You can see it right here, kind of, it's hard to see, but it's wherever the sidewalk meets the paving, that this has a curb cut to accommodate
Yeah, that's,
ADA. So again, maybe there's one that goes up here, you know, a crosswalk, or maybe one back here somewhere.
Yeah, because if they want to walk to the park, they're going to cut across the road. The ones up there, I would think they'd walk across the road and then up the sidewalk.
I think what we'd want to do is probably sit with the town and try to determine, not have very specifically designed crosswalks as opposed to just all over, then they become, people ignore them. You have to, there's a design to them that, and then people begin to ignore them. They walk, and that voids the whole purpose of what you're trying to do.
So I agree with with Gary's comments about that circle. So I like the circle. I think it's a good place, and I like that there's a little sidewalk around it, and that the mailbox is there. And I think it makes sense to have temporary, you know, like some short-term parking for the mailbox. I wouldn't want to have like people able to park there for like long-term, because that would kind of block access potentially to the mailbox and make it unsafe. And so I don't want to get into all the details because that's not my area of expertise, certainly designing roads. So if the plan was sent to Streets and Roads, like that's one thing, but I think that, so insofar as how, you know, what the town can ask of Streets and Roads, I think that it should be asked of them to have it on their agenda to discuss and provide feedback. And then if they've overtly said, no, we have no feedback, then I think we can all like say, okay, cool. But if we don't have that and it's just kind of like, well, we sent it to them, you know, but we don't know if it made it to their agenda, then yeah.
Well, we can make sure that it gets on their agenda. Yep.
Okay.
I'm in agreement with Gary as well with the circle. I just, with parking on either side of that circle, it just seems like there's an accident or a kid running out or between cars as mom's getting the mail or dad or whoever. I just,
This was an illustration. We're not, I mean, you know, no, I mean, part of it may be that you end up putting no parking signs in certain parts of it there. We don't have, this was response back to the Planning Commission.
Yeah.
I asked for more parking.
I gave it to you.
You showed us the possibilities.
Yeah, and consider that it'll be governed by an HOA, and in those guiding documents, they can insert that no car can be on the street, even though it's a public street, for more than a certain amount of time.
Right.
Obviously, RVs, boats, and all kinds of other things that are parked on the public streets in Mount Airy can be tagged by the code enforcement. I believe there's a 48-hour rule on those.
Yep.
If somebody's having a 2-day party and there's 50 people over one house and they take all of these spots up, obviously that's an odd occurrence that probably will never happen. I don't foresee 50.
At that point, you'd be
cars being on
renting
that
an
street.
event space somewhere.
Right.
And we also have age restricted inside of this, correct?
No age restrictions.
We have 3 different house types, and
Yeah.
one of them is a villa, which is
Villa.
typically catered to 55 or older, but this isn't saying you have to be 55 or
Okay,
older.
there's
in order
there's
to buy one of
nothing
those.
inside of that that says okay.
Well, and back to the circle thing, I envision traffic movement basically coming down Red Sunset Court and going this way down into this section. I only see these 6 houses, or maybe even 5, utilizing this right, unless you're going to pick your mail up. I don't see, and this might become one-way. We could make this a one-way, and this would be a great question for streets and roads, which would allow for, I wouldn't want to see, if this was two-way movement, I wouldn't want to see cars on both sides. This would be a one-way road, and this would be, the majority of the traffic is going to go this way. You would make a right if you lived in T1 or T4. But if you're T5, I don't know. I probably would just go straight through and park and walk over and get my mail. So I don't see that being a hurdle. Again, I feel like this would be a one-way situation here. Maybe at least up to their driveway, right? Because they might want to go right and go visit their friend instead of, or they might want to go, we don't want them coming left. So it's one way from this street, from their driveway down.
Well, that kind of answers the question too, of Gary's question of, people coming in and out, right? It's one way going in. We have crosswalks in.
Okay.
The suggestion by Mr. Breeding was possibly making it one way in. That's not what's on the plan. But you still have this cross street coming this way. Right? You have a non-straight through intersection. So is there a stop sign here?
That'll be all part of it.
It's not a natural flow. It's not, you can't open up a student driver handbook and see that intersection. That's not what a 17-year-old's going to know how to handle.
So there will be a signage plan, a striping plan that shows stop bars. I imagine Red Sunset's going to be your main drag coming in. Everything else is going to have stop signs, stop bars. Again, that's going to be something that comes at preliminary or final stage. So it's not something that we really need to get into the details, that concept.
Yeah, because this is a concept. No, I know.
The other thing, too, to address some of Gary's comments, we've worked in the town for 28 years, and Barney can attest that we've done a number of projects, and what we showed on paper, as we've built it, we've had to do some modifications. We've worked with town staff, town engineer, to make the modifications to rectify the situation.
And Carroll, this is Carroll County, right?
This is,
Yep, this is all Carroll.
Technically Carroll County, so yeah, they'll have their notes and all that jazz. Okay. Okay, how comfortable are we? Any more questions?
Again, what I would say is also in your, I'm hoping we get a concept because it allows us to go to the next stage in more detail to bring back to the Planning Commission. This is not your one and done here. You get another shot at it with additional detail.
I do want to speak to the APFO requirements. Again, so before we make a vote on the subdivision plan. Again, so APFO for water is adequate. Again, this property brought in a well that's been deeded to the town that we've been utilizing for the last 20 years. They had a water allocation that was set for this parcel, twice as dense as this ultimately. And then the capacity for the sewer is also adequate with the current wastewater treatment available is adequate. My one big concern is, again, the schools. If you look on page 5 of the staff report, the elementary, Mount Airy Elementary and Pars Ridge Elementary are adequate for the years 24 to 29. And this is the data that I received from Carroll County. Mount Airy Middle School is adequate to year 2024 to 2025, and then is approaching inadequate from 26 to 29. So that might impact, and this is, I reached out to him today for updated information because of the blueprint plan might be modifying these numbers. So I'm hoping to get, the next time it comes in front of you, I'll have the most recent adequate data. But again, so the middle schools, which might impact some of the permitting process, depending on when we get a final approval and construction starts. And then the high school, of course, is South Carroll, and it's adequate between 24 to 20, that should be 24 to 29. Bless you. That's a typo, so that should be 29.
Which should be 29?
The South Carroll High School is adequate from 24 to 29.
What number do you use for approaching inadequate for the middle school?
So we use 100% for the town. Again, so APFO roads and traffic control devices is also pending. Again, it was still out for review and also would be addressed at the final plan stage as well. Fire rescue is adequate. Again, this is for the residential portion of this. Again, the commercial element is sort of its separate entity right now. Police services approaching inadequate. We are working towards getting additional officers approved and hired. Currently, I think we're at 10 officers and scheduled for 11. So we're rated almost full capacity. And then the open space, of course, this was dependent on the approval of the waiver, which we did today, approve that. And so again, the staff is recommending that that we grant the concept approval to allow the 60 lot subdivision. We'll work on the pattern book later for the residential portion of the Green Tree subdivision with the following conditions. Open space waiver for Green Tree has been granted and accepted by the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission has approved the pattern book. Well, we're going to go through that here in a second. For this, of the subdivision plan, that all state, county, and town comments are addressed before final approval is granted. That the single-family homes must match the existing neighborhood, and the 5 houses along the street must face Main Street.
Okay. Any more comments? Oh,
Okay. Couple things here. I understand what Mr. Breeding is saying is that what's on the table tonight is the residential component. The agenda calls this concept site development plan and pattern book. I asked you to be very deliberate in whatever your motion is, how you language that. Because my next comment is, I have a comment regarding the commercial space, which seems like we're not discussing tonight, but if it gets approved as concept site plan in the agenda in the minutes, I'm going to get told later when I come back, too bad concept plan was approved.
yeah.
So I think that needs to be very deliberate because that's not what's in the agenda, and I think the motion needs to reflect that.
Yeah, so in my notes for the motion, I had recommendation of the planning committee, grant a concept approval on the residential portion.
Okay.
That was going to be my suggestion for the motion. I wanted to talk
Okay.
to Tom.
Madam Chair, what I'd suggest is that you're approving the subdivision, concept plan subdivision. That does not include the site, concept site plan
Well, I'd like clarity from Tom.
for the commercial.
That's correct. So you're approving the subdivision. However, the commercial still needs to come back with its own site plan concept.
That's per the town code.
et cetera.
Okay, but for clarity for everyone, can I just, in the motion, can we say can we just make a note about the commercial portion will be coming back later? Or is it necessary if we say the subdivision only?
Well, the subdivision is adequate, I think.
Should be enough, okay.
Because the subdivision is looking at all the individual lots. And then the housing types are part of the pattern book. Again, the townhouses, the villas are the ones along Main Street, or the commercial element. But you're approving the subdivision of the entire parcel, which is the piece getting deeded to the town, all the different individual lots as we work through the preliminary plan and the final plan. Again, the commercial element will still have to come back in front of the planning commission for a concept and final site development plan.
Quite frankly, to clarify even further, the preliminary plan will show, I mean, it's a little convoluted because it is a mixed-use CC, but the preliminary plan will show the commercial site as a blank site. It will show it with grading as a commercial pad site. You won't see the parking, landscaping, or building as part of it because, again, as Mr. Breeding is saying, that's a site plan process. So I don't want to further that and confuse it as you move forward into the preliminary subdivision and the improvement plans. That will sit like you do for a normal industrial commercial subdivision. You show pads, you don't show the buildings on them.
Well, and to Mr. Fry's concerns about the pattern book, again, we aren't to that point yet, we're looking at just the subdivision plan, is that there are components in the pattern book that reflect the commercial site. And so if we're approving the pattern book, we want to somehow exclude that commercial section, because even Steve O'Malley had concerns about the elevations of the commercial building. I personally think the bank barn looks beautiful, but he's saying it wasn't in compliance with, or in conjunction with the downtown or the vision of Mount Airy. So I don't know how we can remove the portion of the commercial out of the pattern book for the pattern book to get approved at the concept level. I don't know how we go about separating that, even though, because they're all in one here. And that's what his concern is, that we're
If I could make
approving the
a
pattern book.
suggestion, is that maybe your motion on the pattern book has a bullet item that says with the
Exclusion of
commercial
any-
elevation to be refined as part of a
Separate.
site plan, a separate process there.
Which I think is the great way to generate that. But some way, because again, I think, and I understand his concern is that if we approve the pattern book, that's an element within there, and those elevations are reflective of that approval.
Yeah, because there's a bullet point that says the planning commission has approved the pattern book as part of this subdivision plan. It does not talk about
The commercial
the
element.
commercial. Is that adequate?
Well, doesn't it say it's residential portion of Green Tree subdivision? So that essentially is covering us
Yeah.
on both ends
If you-
because it
you-
says residential portion.
Yeah, and if the move-in, whoever it is, would want to be even more specific, you could say, an approval of that portion of the pattern book related to the residential properties, or something like that.
Okay. Subdivision plan related to the residential properties. Okay.
And through my staff report, many places I only call it the residential use only, to make sure that we're, understanding that we're just looking at the residential portion. We're looking at the whole subdivision, but just the residential portion for the pattern book. But the subdivision itself is the whole entire site.
Right.
Can we put a bullet point just to say we're excluding the commercial portion of it? But in your recommendation, it does say
Yeah.
the subdivision pattern book for residential portion of Green Tree subdivision with the following conditions. So it's already stating,
Thank you.
Agreed, I think you're covered
That covers
multiple ways.
Said it multiple ways.
But
One, provided that follows, but that is the way the motion is worded as it does that. If I may, real quick, my one comment to the commercial. The code requires loading zones in the building, that's not shown anywhere. So that was my only comment. Loading zones,
On the,
on the commercial space, on the commercial property.
okay,
That's just something that's required. It's not shown up there.
which would probably be addressed when you bring that.
Site development plan.
Site
An
development.
element of,
So that was what I wanted to bring up, but I'm good as long as you kind of divorce the two for your motion.
Yes, thank you. Yep. That was one of my questions. So, okay, are we comfortable making a motion then? Anybody, any other comments? Do you want to go ahead? You feel comfortable or?
Is this just for the concept or is it also for the pattern book?
Pattern book for the.
Are we doing two
residential-
separate motions, one for concept, one for pattern book?
Well, I think what we were just talking about in here, and Tom, you can help,
The staff recommendation is exactly what we should say.
yeah.
It's this.
If you're comfortable with that, I don't want to be putting words in your mouth.
No,
Or-
that covers everything, I think.
Yeah.
It covers it.
Yeah.
It
We
does,
just went
but
over that.
we haven't really talked about the pattern book. We talked about the concept plan. That's why I just had like one
Okay.
comment.
We should discuss the pattern book then prior to making a motion.
Right.
Yeah, I was
Okay,
inside
that's what-
of the pattern book.
I was thinking we might do it as two separate items just because of the confusion with the commercial and.
Okay.
But
What's your comment on the?
This is very minor, but in there it says that the townhome garage doors some will have windowed panels and some will not. Can we just be?
Sorry.
I thought we,
No, it's okay. It's in the townhomes.
It's the townhomes, it's page 6.
Yeah, page.
unless I missed, which potentially text-wise, all of the elevations show windows in the,
They do, but the
Garages.
text said garage doors with and without.
oh, I missed.
which page is that on?
On page 6.
So the final that I give back to the town, page 6, second column, first bullet should be
Oh, I see.
with paneled windows, sorry.
Okay.
and I believe we agreed to that when we had Kevin Scott here from Ryan Homes.
Yeah, I know we talked about it, but I saw it in there. so.
I do want to make one comment that I noticed on page 7. The bottom set of elevations, I don't know if they're the townhouses, if they're the villas. I think they're the townhouses. These are the villas. I don't like the monotone tan. Like, that is not okay. The elevations at the top, I'm great with those. But the ones below, I don't like the monotone tan across the front of that.
And, well, the way we also cover that for protection of the town is building permit. They've got to sit down with the town director of
make
planning
colors.
and, well, essentially, he has to sign off on it. So if they walk in a block that has 6 or 4 all looking the same, this pattern book here says, sorry, go back and rework it
Right, so
there a little bit.
I approve, like, when this comes in as a cluster, a block, I would say each one will have an elevation, each one will have different colors.
Color scheme.
and different stones, and then I'll basically approve that block.
Okay,
So it's on my doorstep. So if they all end up being tan, tell me.
You'll
Say,
come up and.
John, what the heck?
okay.
And you're saying, John, you like on page 7, the top elevation better than
Right, I
the,
think they also match more of the concern that Kim brought up about having all the gabled ends, which this is sort of much more random and pleasant looking in my opinion.
I actually like it, so.
Any other concerns in the pattern book or comments or?
The only, just to kind of highlight what John said, I see the note in here, you guys were very clear that it's impossible to, tell what the final design will be, but I just want to make sure we don't revert back to the triangle villas that we saw previously. I think everybody likes the ones shown in the top picture.
I think this sets the guidelines for what the developer and the home builder have to come in with.
Right.
There may be slight variations that they will sit with John on, but the whole purpose of this is for John to pull it out and say, hey, that ain't even close to what, or, you're in the ballpark, or, hey, you're right on.
Right, okay.
Those are,
And these changes we've reflected in this revision were generated by Kevin Scott after he sat down and heard the commission's comments, what you liked and didn't like. And he said, yeah, we can do this, or no, we couldn't do that. So this is, so he heard all your concerns and made those corrections or adjustments.
It looks much better.
Yeah, I think we all noticed
Definitely.
that, changed and liked it.
No fault of Ron, but I think what he initially submitted in his initial pattern book was a generic elevation that was just randomly pulled off the internet.
Okay. How are we doing? Everybody good? Any other questions? No other public comment? Oh, they left. Okay, I'll entertain a motion. It's a long one. It's okay.
I'll make a motion to approve to grant a concept approval to allow this 60-lot subdivision and pattern book for the residential portion of this Green Tree subdivision with the following conditions. That all state, county, and town comments are addressed before final approval is granted. That the single-family houses must match the existing neighborhoods, and the 5 houses along Main Street must face Main Street. That Streets and Roads reviews and provides recommendations, and that the fire department review the on-street parking, addition of on-street parking. And that the garage doors have windows.
Yes.
Excluding any commercial.
And this is only for residential portion, this excludes the commercial.
Yeah. I will second that motion.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any nay? Okay, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. How are we doing on time? Okay. Next item, we have the council liaison report from Councilman Evans. He emailed it to us because they are all at MML. Any objections to me reading it out loud, or does anybody else want to read it? Okay, all right. So June 3rd, Town Council recap from Jason Evans. No public hearings were scheduled. New business was reappointments of Mary Beth Roosh to Ethics Commission, Martina Hatley to Planning Commission, Peggy Fleming to Recycling and Sanitation. Ordinances 2024-8, budget amendment was approved 5-0. 2024-10 through 2024-19 budget amendments were all approved 5-0. 2024-20 to allow up to 2 members of the Sustainability Commission to be non-town residents was approved 5-0. Resolution 2024-3 to allow alcohol at the Celebrate Mount Airy on August 31st was approved 5-0. Charter Amendment Resolution 2024-2 relating to urban renewal was introduced, and the public hearing was scheduled for July 2nd at 7:15 p.m. Unfinished business findings and decision documents for the Beck property pre-concept plan were approved 5-0. Next council meeting will be July 2nd due to the Spirit Parade on the 1st. And that concludes his report. Okay. And then any questions on the zoning administrator report? Any clarifications needed? Okay. Next planning commission meeting date is scheduled for July 29th at 7:30 at Town Hall. And then the other thing I needed to insert in there was the master plan meeting dates coming up in July. We had one written down for July 11th. And is that here?
Town Hall, yes.
Town Hall. Okay, did we have a time on that?
I don't think so, but I think we started at 6 or 7, so I wasn't sure.
6 or
The last
7.
time I thought we started at 6, but
Is
whatever
6
works for everybody.
Yeah, I was going to say, because is 6 still okay for everyone, or should we do 6:30?
I will not be here.
Yeah, you're not there, okay. You don't, okay. Some. 6:30, okay. And then we can send like a reminder email to everybody. That's July 11th. And then I had another one scheduled July 18th, which was meant to be at the senior center.
Correct.
And I think the agendas for these, we're going over the comments made from the counties. Everybody's got their assignments on their covered counties. And the senior center one, should we say 6:30 as well, or is?
Yes.
Okay, okay. Any other business?
I have a question about the master plan and the comment that Hannah provided at the last meeting about the housing element. That's a significant piece of the master plan, and it requires a significant amount of research and data points and things like that. Do we have a plan for doing that?
We have an example from what was in the previous plan.
I think the
Well, MDE did provide us like a boilerplate that we can utilize and refine to meet the town's requirements.
Right.
But yeah, we're going to have to schedule that. I don't think it's actually scheduled in our schedule.
Right, and I mean, you have to put in like all the data about median incomes, and you have to address affordable housing, like all of that. And I think this was before I was on the PC, but this was briefed by the state of Maryland, I think, last year.
Joe Griffiths gave a
Yes.
presentation. So, I mean, that presentation should still be available to us,
Yes,
right?
it is.
So that would be a valuable resource for that. Do we have an email copy of that? Because that was a while ago. I don't know if I still
I
have.
can see if I can find something. I'm sure I can.
Okay.
I guess I was just asking, how much is town staff contributing to the input for that chapter? Because that's a heavy lift, from what I could tell.
Probably a lot.
Okay, okay, all right.
Does that help you, Heather?
Yeah, because I don't get paid to do this.
No, I know.
And I don't have
Tell me
all that
about it.
time.
Tell me about it. Okay, any other questions about that?
No, and I won't be, just a reminder, I won't be here on the 29th
Oh, for next,
Yeah.
okay.
for the next PC meeting.
Okay, no, Kim. Okay, anything else? Okay, we are adjourned. Oh, I didn't use the gavel. Thank you, everyone.